What's going on? YouTube Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to do with you guys. This is the Monterey Bay Knives and Ray Laconico collaboration EWZ. What does EWZ stand for? It stands for Everywhere Carry, not to be confused with a recent popular design from Monterey Bay Knives and Ray Laconico. That would be the EZC, which stands for EZ Carry. This is a very interesting knife. As usual, I have a lot to say about it. This knife was provided for review by the manufacturer, rather the Apex Pass-Around group that I'm involved with. That is much appreciated. As usual, I'll try not to let that affect my review. It should be pretty easy considering I don't get to keep the knife. Just want to remind everybody, the fact that I can bring you guys daily content, sometimes 2 uploads a day, is a direct result of my generous patrons. Thank you so much to you generous patrons. If you are enjoying my content and you'd like to provide support, you can follow the link in the description to my Patreon. Have a look around, and then if you decide it's something that you want to do, your support would be much appreciated. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and get a measurement on this guy. Where's my tape? There it is. Overall length on the EWZ is coming in. I always have to stop and think. Am I saying that correctly? EWZ. Tip to scale on the back end, you're looking at, gosh, really? It's actually under 7 inches. This thing really throws me off. I mean, dimensionally, it's like 6.85 inches. From tip to scale, you're looking at just a hair under. You see that? You see where we're at here? Let me lock this out. Give you guys a special. This is, I like this because well, I'm at an angle now. Let me bring this in. I want to do this. This is important to me. People who are trying to make knives with blade lengths that fall within a legal parameter that's helpful, this is helpful. It's definitely under 3 inches. Now, this knife is going to be really beneficial for a lot of people in terms of legality situations beyond just the blade length. We'll talk about that for a sec, but thank you. Now, I'm somebody who's fortunate enough to live in a state where they're like, we don't care. Kansas is like, whatever, carry swords, whatever you want, we don't care. But a lot of people don't live in places like that. A lot of people live in areas where knives are restricted in some forms or other forms. And starting off with having a blade that is definitely under 3 inches is a good move. Thank you. Very smart. Really, really like that. Let's do some size comparisons here. How about up against the Ontario Rat Model 1? Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall. You know what we didn't do? We didn't measure the actual cutting edge. The cutting edge on this guy is about 2.75 inches. So we're like, well, how much cutting edge does it have? 2.75 inches overall is what the cutting edge is on that guy. Anyways, how about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall. How about a guest size comparison? Because thanks to my buddy Spirited Whiskey, I actually happen to have a custom, no, not a drop version, a custom Laconico EZC. So here's the EZC, this is the actual custom EZC up against the Monterey Bay and Ray Laconico collaboration production EWC. Pretty cool. They are literally the exact same size and dimensions. Now, for those of you going, why would anyone buy the custom when you could just buy the production? Because there's production and custom versions of both of these as far as I understand. Maybe there's not a custom EWC yet. I have no idea. But, I feel obligated to say this every time. Guys, there is definitely a difference between the custom and the production. I mean, it's awesome that there's there are production versions sometimes of custom knives. They're very, very well made, but without being able to handle them both, it's really difficult, to explain exactly what the differences are. But there's a lot of refinement that goes into a custom. I know we're looking at 2 completely different models here, even between custom and production variants. But just so you know, yes, they do look the same. The grinds look the same. The overall dimensions look the same. But as far as the processes and refinement and the feeling, that go into some of these knives, yeah, there's more that goes into the custom. But the nice thing is you can choose for yourself. You can choose which one you would like to purchase if you're interested. So we all have those freedoms there to purchase the things that we enjoy. Anyways, last up, the Spyderco Para 3, which I think is probably going to be the best size comparison other than the actual Laconico there. Para 3 coming in at 7¼ inches. So this is going to be shorter and smaller than the Para 3. So how's the action on this guy? What's the deal with it, right? So this knife has an interesting setup. One that has only been seen one other time on my channel it was a Kaiser knife. I'm going to do a move here that I have called, what did I decide to call it? Well, I'm going to FBR it. What does FBR mean? It means fancy but risky. This has a double detent. Oh, Complex, you're so funny. This has a double detent, which means you can actually, you don't have to do it like this, but there's no lock on it, right? It's essentially a breakaway. It feels like a lock. You know, it gets to here, and it feels like a lock, but it's not. There's another detent up there, so you can break it and push it back. So this plays into what I was talking about you know, legality issues, and this is right on their website, Monterey Bay Knives website, this will be linked down there, so you guys can go check this out. It says the design philosophy was to make a knife that was, you know, more legal friendly in a lot of areas. There are areas that don't allow locking knives and are, you know, have double restrictions of knives, you know, with blades over a certain limit. So with this being definitely under 3 inches and definitely not a locking knife, you can see what I mean by fancy but risky? If you get it just right, you can get it to close. There we go. How fancy but risky is that? Bam. Ah, sometimes it bounces back out. But you can use that detent if you get just the right amount of pressure. It will actually close and get sucked in by that second detent right there. Yeah, super cool. So the actual deployment on it is really cool as well. It's utilizing bearings. This is a top flipper, not a front flipper, not a standard flipper, what I would call a top flipper, meaning the flipper is not a traditional, as Nick would put it, a pocket pecker. No, this actually follows the lines of the back of the knife and the flipper's up top. Now, normally that would create a situation where it feels kind of unnatural to get my finger up here, but the bracing points, you know, between my palm and the pocket clip and where I want to put my finger, yeah, it's an absolute, it's a different kind of light switch feeling, but you can do it. The funny thing is between the two detents, once you get kind of a rhythm down, it actually becomes a very fidgety knife. I will caution you though, keep your fingers out of that path if you're going to close it like that. I mean, the safest way to do it is to simply, I am so sorry about that, spitting when I'm talking, goodness. The best way to close it is to simply use your finger and close it like this. Now you want to do the fancy deployment, that's fine, you know, but closing it like this slowly is much safer. I will say that this does not have, you know, it's not going to be a knife that's got fall shut action. This has got a little teeny tiny bit of friction in there, but it's still definitely smooth. But this has also been passed around by the group a little bit, and I would imagine as any knife, you know, over time, as long as you maintain it, it's probably going to get smoother and smoother and smoother as that ceramic detent ball wears its path into the blade. But yeah, if you can keep your fingers out of the path, it does have kind of a fidget-friendly sort of thing about it, but just rest assured, I feel like it's an inevitability that if you play with it like that, you're probably going to end up with a little bit of a finger wound, you know? So it does come down with quite a bit of force. Both detents are honestly pretty heavy. The bottom one's not quite as heavy. The top one is definitely, yeah, the top one's definitely heavy. So just to give an explanation there, absolutely. Let's go ahead and weigh it because that is a very important spec on this knife. Go ahead and close her up here. So remember, you know, the measurements there. Carbon fiber on both sides. No liners or anything on the inside, just carbon fiber. 2.08 ounces, just over 2 ounces. Whew, man, that is mega lightweight. Understandable, you know. We have a knife with a carry profile that is very thin. You can see there compared to the PM2, super thin. You can see here on the inside, really the only metal, and I actually didn't look, I mean, the bearings have to be, the interesting thing is I wouldn't know exactly what the bearings themselves are running on, and I don't know if I can even really see in there. Oh, I'm reflecting this up against my eyes here. That's an enormous problem. Don't do that, shining a flashlight directly into your eyes. I'm trying to look in here. I would imagine that the bearings are running on some type of race. The bearings in here are probably not running on the carbon fiber. I don't think that that would work. I would imagine, much like how Rick Hinder has the tri-way pivot system rigged up, there's a little steel washer in there, or I'm sorry, it actually doesn't work like that. On the tri-way pivot system, the steel washer's the spacer. Anyways, I would imagine there's some sort of plate in there where the bearings can run on the plate instead of the carbon fiber. In fact, that's exactly what it feels like. Carbon fiber is not a surface I think you would want bearings running directly on. But the truth is I don't know. I'm not going to take this apart. This is a review sample. Logic would dictate that that's how they have that set up, so that you don't have wear over time. You don't have the bearings breaking down the carbon fiber and getting lumpy action or anything like that. It feels like a very smooth surface and an even surface, so that's what I'm going to guess it's running on the inside there. But anyways, you have two pieces of a fairly thin carbon fiber, and then just the blade, which is also pretty thin. Let's go ahead and turn on my fancy new calipers here. Zero them out. Blade stock thickness coming in at, we're going to call that between 125 and 130 thousandths, so not super thick to begin with. And then a pretty, narrow profile. Not a lot of material is essentially what I'm getting at there. So you have a blade that's about 2.85 inches overall and a weight that's only about 2 ounces. So in terms of your carry profile here, this thing is mega lightweight. It's also, mega lightweight, but it's also very, very easy to carry. Considering the shape of the pocket clip and the design of the pocket clip, the smoothness and the contouring of the carbon fiber, this thing is so easy to get in and out of the pocket. I always do, you can hear that clipping over my pants there. I always do it off camera, but carry profile on this guy, super easy to carry. Very, very, very easy to carry. I'm going to say right now, before we start talking about the anatomy, now that we're like 12 minutes in, this knife is 100% absolutely more of a dressy knife, more of a cocktail party knife, a church knife, an office carry knife, whatever. Not a hard use knife. This is something that you're going to use for very, very simple EDC tasks. Things like opening packages, cutting open letters, cutting strings off of some sort of package at a party or something. I mean, this is a simple, convenience tool that also happens to be very refined and very sort of fancy and elegant. That to me is what this emphasizes. But at the same time, it's made to be convenient to carry. Depending on where you're going, it's going to be legal in a lot of places. So it's going to be convenient, and they've also managed to give you a pretty substantial amount of blade and cutting edge, given those parameters. So that's really, really impressive. This is a knife that I feel like, those of us who aren't in the jungle or scaling buildings or jumping out of helicopters, I know I'm being sarcastic. Those of us just doing regular, normal, non-hard use or even medium use type tasks in our everyday lives, this is a very, very convenient, very well set up cutting tool. So taking a look at the blade, we do have a drop point blade that has been fully flat ground. This is about as straightforward as it gets. And I'll tell you what, not only do I appreciate it because I really like simple stuff, I also like how they just left it completely sterile except for their logo here, which I actually don't mind at all. It's nice. What kind of steel is it? It's M390, which I think is very appropriate on a blade like this, assuming their heat treat is done correctly. I have no idea. The edges up here are a little bit sharp, but they're not the worst thing in the entire world. I have definitely felt sharper edges, but you can see there, it's catching my fingernails a little bit. That's kind of how sorry, that's gross. But that's kind of how I test that. If it's going to catch your fingernails, it's probably a little bit sharp. It would have been nice to have that knocked down a little bit. No big deal. It does get nice and thin behind the edge. This is going to be a very performance-oriented blade. There's no jimping up top. That makes sense because if you put pressure up here, well, you're going to end up with a nice racing stripe on your finger. Moving down to the scales here, we do have nicely contoured carbon fiber scales. I will say that the edges on these, again, are just a little tiny bit sharp. It's not super sharp, right? Carbon fiber is not going to catch your fingernail, and you're really not going to be gripping this knife in a way and putting enough pressure on it for any of those sharp corners to really bother you. This is going to be a knife that you sort of hold like this, or like this as you cut open a package. This isn't used over and over and over and over again. I mean, you could break down boxes with it, but that's not what I see myself doing with a knife like this. So I'm not so sure that I'm really all that concerned with those edges. You can see here there are no real ergonomic lines, and I think that's to emphasize the carryability of this knife, the convenience of it. Yes, it's always nice to have good ergonomic lines on a knife, right? It's nice to have that. I think what has been done with this knife in terms of, you know, the little notch cut out here or the slot cut out there on the handle, which is probably more for aesthetic purposes than ergonomic purposes, but it does provide a little place for your thumb to kind of catch, or your fingers to catch if you're holding it like this. And the contouring helps a little bit. But for the most part, it's simply just a handle. It's good enough. It's not the best ergonomic thing in the whole world, but considering what they were trying to achieve with the design, I understand why it is this way. You do have a T8 pivot head here, so easy adjustment. And then curiously, it's polished on one side and not on the other, but that's fine. I don't know if it's free spinning or not. I did make a small adjustment to bring the blade back to center before I started this, and it seemed to adjust just fine and hold its place, so that's good. Two little T6 body screws down here. You guys know I hate T6 body screws, but it is what it is. It's never really a deal breaker. Two little standoffs. I like that. It provides plenty of structural integrity while at the same time keeping this fully open body and very, very easy to clean out. Really like the pocket clip. Very straightforward, contoured titanium. The contouring lines actually follow the carbon fiber. It's got two screws up there. It's actually been cut, I believe, ever so slightly into the carbon. It hasn't been anything. It kind of looks like the bottom of it is, which is probably why there's no play. Generally, two vertical screws is a recipe for play in a pocket clip, but there is none. And then the rest of it's much the same as the front, except that there's no line or no fuller cut into the, I guess you wouldn't call that a fuller on the handle, would you? But this fuller type milling here is not on, it's not present on the back side. The knife is absolutely centered now that I've adjusted it, and there is no blade play. I mean, obviously there's going to be up and down because that's the detent there. That's how it's designed to be. But yeah. So overall, my nitpicks include some sharp edges up top. There's no real ergonomic lines, but at the same time, it's like I completely understand why there aren't any. And then we've got some T6 body screws. Other than that, I don't know that I have a whole lot more to say. I mean, here's who's going to enjoy this. I mean, if you're looking for a refined knife, you don't mind that it's not made in the United States, but you're looking something very refined, very fancy, very elegant, made out of premium materials, and something that you're going to be able to carry with you in a vast array of circumstances and locations, this knife's going to be for you. What's the price on this guy? Well, right out of the website, Monterey Bay Knives, they're going for about $180. And you know what? I think I can understand that. It's like I usually say, everything could be 20 bucks less. And when I look back at my reviews and I listen to myself talk, it's like I'm like, it's okay at this price, but it could be, you know, if it was 160, it'd be better. Well, of course it'd be better if it was 160. That's $20 less than 180. Can I understand 180 bucks for this? Yeah, I can. And honestly, I think I can recommend it. This isn't going to be for everybody. You know, if you're looking for a hard-use tactical knife, this isn't your guy. I mean, if you're looking for a locking knife, this isn't your guy. But if you're looking for, you know, a knife that falls within the parameters of the ones that I just discussed, yeah, you're really going to like this. You're going to be happy with the build quality, and you're going to like the simplistic, minimalist appearance that's kind of mixed with luxury. It's kind of got an irony balance thing going on there, but I really like it. Guys, that's going to be pretty much it for today's review and overview. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, then go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.